Welcome to Code Review, CSS Variables and Selectors. And to begin, I'm going to start with CSS Variables, which are also known as CSS Custom Properties. And the idea here is that we're making reusable properties that are stored in one place in the CSS file and then can be referenced in multiple other places. To demonstrate CSS variables, I'm going to extract the values of the background and the border color and place them inside of a variable. So now I'm going to head on over to the CSS file. And to begin, I'm going to start with a pseudo class, :root. And the root element matches and represents the root of the tree representing the document. In HTML, root represents the HTML element and is identical to it when it comes to being a selector, except that the root has higher priority. Now, to declare a CSS variable, we need to start with two dashes. So --main -bg -color. Now, why did I choose this name? Is there a meaning behind it? Where did this name come from? When you write a variable name, you want to make it meaningful to what it's being used for. So in this case, I'm saying that this is the main background color. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit and copy this background color and paste it in as the value for this CSS variable. Now I'm going to make another CSS variable, --main -border -color. And now I'm going to scroll down again and copy the border color and paste it as the value for this variable. Now what I'm going to do is replace the existing colors with the variable names. Beginning with the main header, I'm going to delete this color and in its place type var with parentheses, and this is how we're telling the browser that we're using a CSS variable. And inside of the parentheses, I'm going to type the variable name --main -bg -color. Now I'm going to scroll down to the subcontainer class and do the same thing again and replace the background color with the variable. I'm also going to replace the border color with the main border color variable. Now, if everything has been done correctly, the website should look exactly the same, as all I've done is replace the existing color values with CSS variables that held those color values. So I'm going to go back to the browser. Now, everything is working correctly. The colors are the same as before. Had I made an error, the colors would have never shown up correctly. Now, what if I had 500 sections, all with the same background color? And in those 500 sections, I had about 40 different classes that were using that same background color to bring it across onto the web page. And the design team tells me, we want to change the main background color. If I had to replace each one of those colors, that would take a long time. This is where CSS variables and using them is really helpful. I'm going to go back to the code editor. And what I'm going to do is change the main background color to a different color. I'm going to change it to green. And while I'm at it, I'm going to change the border color to pink. Now I'm going to go back to the browser. And on the screen, the background is now green and the border color is pink. And this demonstrates the efficiency that CSS variables offer by allowing you to change one value in your CSS file and change all the other values that reference that one value throughout your CSS file. Now I'm going to discuss CSS selectors. Now the web page on the screen is a little different than before. I still have the green background and the pink borders, but I also have different image sizes. And I'm going to give a red border around each image. So I'm going to go back to the code editor. So to select the images, I'm going to use the image element selector, IMG. I'm going to give each image a border that is red with a width of 5 pixels, and it is a solid border. And now I'm going to go back to the web browser. Now this works, but what if I only wanted the border on the images that are 200 by 200 on the screen? How would I approach this? Well, I could give each 200 by 200 image its own class. Or I could use something like a CSS attribute selector to specifically target these 200 by 200 images without targeting the others. Now I'm going to go to MDM and take a look at the CSS attribute selector documentation. And here is a list of different CSS attribute selectors and examples of how to use them. A little farther in the documentation is a list with an explanation of what each selector does. And I'm going to use the ATTR, short for attribute, asterisk equal value. And what does this mean? Well, ATTR represents the attribute name. Asterisk equal value means that we're going to be searching for a specific value that happens at least once. I'm going to go back to the code editor and explain this a little further. Now I'm back at the code editor and I am zoomed in, and I want to point out something about these images. The images that are 200 by 200 pixels end with 200 in the URL, while the images that are 100 by 100 pixels end with 100. So what I'm going to do here is use the attribute selector, and the attribute I'm going to select is source. And then I want to search for any image that has 200 in its URL. That way, I'm only targeting the images that have this specific value. So now I'm going to go back to the CSS file, and I'm going to change this CSS selector to use that attribute selector. And to start this off, I need to use square brackets. So I'm going to put square brackets. And now I need to pass in the attribute name, which is source, SRC. And I'm going to type asterisk equal. And the value I want to search for, and I need to wrap this in quotes, is 200. So with this CSS, I am stating any image with the source that has 200 in it, apply the CSS, which is going to give the image a red border. So I'm going to go back to the browser. And now back over at the browser, the large 200 by 200 images have a red border. So this works. Thanks for watching and happy coding.